Welcome to Do You Believe on LiveesciFi.tv. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you, everybody in the chat room. And please subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Now, tonight, we have a fabulous guest with us, Kieth Johnson. Now, many of you have seen him on many paranormal shows, and especially Ghost Hunters when they started out 8 years ago. Kieth and his brother Carl were the demonologist on the show, and we're really pleased to have Kieth as our guest tonight. Kieth, thanks so much for joining me tonight.
You're very welcome. It's good to be here, Noreen.
Oh, thank you. Hey, Kieth, would you please tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, please?
All right. Well, I've been into the field of paranormal investigation for quite a few years. I started out in the early 70s when I was a teenager. And my brother Carl and I were still teenagers when we met Ed and Lorraine Warren at a lecture at Rhode Island College and became lifelong friends with them. We also joined our first paranormal group, Parapsychological Investigation and Research Organization, PIRO, at Rhode Island College. Our team leader was Donna, and we're still in touch with her to this day. We went on quite a few investigations with PIRO, including the Harrisville case, my dear friend Andrea Perrin. Of course, that was the subject of the movie The Conjuring, so that was our first major in-home case, and we did get Ed and Lorraine involved with that. My brother and I belong to other groups, Monitorees. We were in the field for quite a few years, and finally, as you mentioned, did join TAPS, the Atlantic Paranormal Society, which is the show you see on the TV series Ghost Hunters. In 2004, my wife Sandra and I split off. She was a member of TAPS as well, and we split off and formed our own group so we could concentrate on the more personal aspects, without the responsibility of a weekly television show. And we formed NEAR, New England Anomalies Research. And that's what our organization is today. And we're very, very active in the local and sometimes national communities dealing with extreme hauntings. Sandra and I do deal with some of the more disturbing cases and aspects of the paranormal field, which includes, of course, demonology. So that's basically what we do, and that's who I am.
Do you deal with a lot of how many demonology cases that you handle, and how do you really know that they are demons that you're dealing with?
Well, we are called into quite a few suspected demonology cases. Now, to tell if it's a true demonic case, there are certain telltale signs you look for, and that is if somebody is, for example, being targeted. If somebody's being personally targeted, it's almost like a brainwashing or a terrorist tactic. They're being targeted to wear down their resistance. Their personality is being invaded, and there are other telltale signs, such as things coming in threes, numerical signs, the 3 knocks, 3 flashes of light, things such as that. Also, things tend to go contrary because these are very contrary spirits. Things tend to go against the clock in the opposite direction. Things tend to go from left to right.
Really?
Just telltale signs like that. And it can go with the cycles of the moon as well. Sometimes something that will begin in the cycle of a new moon is finished completed in the cycle of the full moon. But those are things, of course, you see in retrospect. But there's many ways of telling if it is a demonic. Usually it's a lengthy period of time, though, to actually tell if something is legitimately demonic, as opposed to other explanations, such as mental illness or something like that.
Now, what about these numbers, 333 or 666? Does that have anything to do? Like sometimes something will happen and somebody will be looking on their watch or the clock and it'll be like 606 or 333 or whatever. Does that have anything to do with demons?
Sometimes it could. Sometimes it is, for example, 3 knocks, things and threes. That could be an insult to the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Also, it is believed that Jesus died, made a sacrifice on the cross between the hours of, between actually 3 and 3:30 in the afternoon. And so sometimes the demonic will do an insult to that, which will be, of course, 3 a.m. to 3:30 a.m. in the morning. And if something happened, say if somebody, it's very mysterious, but say something happened to somebody, some tragedy, and a demonic spirit was involved, sometimes that will be repeated at that exact time. The demonic spirit will make its presence known at that same time of night or some same time of day, or annually it will make an appearance. And so there's different reasons why it will occur at certain numerical times. But 3, of course, being an insult to the Trinity, and 3 6 of course, being the number of the Antichrist.
Okay, now again, I would like to play a. This happened to Tim Wood when he came home from the Sally house. He played his answering machine and he got this message on his machine. So Keith, I'm going to play. I know I had sent this to you earlier, but I want the viewers to hear this, and I want to talk a little bit about this message. Okay, so let me play this. Okay, let's see. Okay, I'm going to play it. Oh my God. I can't stand to listen to that thing. It's horrible. That is one of the most horrible recordings I've ever heard, Keith. What is that?
It is a very, very, obviously a very, very disturbing voice. And it's very threatening. It sounds like it's being very, very boastful and threatening. It's trying to get a point across. Look how much power I have. And it's really trying to create a fear tactic. It's really sending the message that it is very threatening and sending a fear tactic. The fact that it was recorded on a personal phone, correct?
Yes.
Yes, that's what makes it more intimidating. Of course, the Sally House has a long reputation for extreme not just a haunting, but extreme hauntings where malicious spirits are involved. And this apparently has made it very personal, has taken a personal vendetta and targeted Tim by sending this message. So if Tim ever does decide to go back to the Sally house, then, I mean, if he does want to go back there after hearing that, then he should go with extreme spiritual protection. Very, very prayerfully have people pray over him for his protection so that he will be in as little danger as possible and as much protection, spiritual protection as possible.
So say he doesn't do that. How much danger would he be in if he goes back without getting any kind of protection?
Well, sorry to say, he could be in extreme danger because these spirits are very malicious, and if they targeted him enough where they're sending him a personal message, they haven't actually come out and attacked him as yet, but they are personalizing this. They are making it a personal vendetta. If he goes back into their territory, they will recognize him. So there is a danger that if he does come back, he may be targeted personally.
Okay, well, he does get scratched when he goes there.
Uh-huh. Okay, so he is being attacked then.
Oh, so demons can scratch.
They are capable of doing that, yes, and in certain conditions, they are capable of actually physically lashing out, despite the fact that they're spirits.
So when somebody goes in, does a paranormal investigation, and they'll go into a location that might have what they say demonic activity, is it always the case if somebody does get scratched that it's demonic, or can a bad spirit also scratch?
It's not necessarily a demonic if somebody gets scratched. There are different types of spirits, and sometimes it's simply a way of making itself known. Usually the scratches will be very, very superficial. But, there is, if somebody is being scratched, that's obviously a personal attack. That's invading somebody's personal space. So I would be very, very cautious if somebody is being touched in any form where they are being harmed, or it's a very unpleasant experience.
So can a demon harm you, actually physically harm you?
Yes, a demon can physically harm a person.
They can? And in which way, Keith?
In a variety of ways. Usually it is psychological. That's the main thing. The physical attacks are just a step in the overall psychological ploy. But demons have been known to scratch. Now, I want everyone to know that what I'm saying is relatively rare. This doesn't happen every single investigation that an investigator will go on, obviously. But yes, there are times where demons can scratch. They can throw heavy objects at somebody. They can cause extreme heat.
Okay, Keith, let me ask you one thing. There are some people that believe that when something is thrown, that it's a poltergeist.
Mm-hmm. That is very possible. It could be a poltergeist, in which case it's not necessarily malicious. It could even be a human agent or a spirit that's not malicious, hurling an object. But when it's thrown at somebody, usually that will be a very, very vindictive, malevolent spirit. And of course, when the demonic is at work, sometimes it will resemble demonic activity, because they're throwing physical objects, causing small fires in certain incidences, causing water to form, water spots. So it can be very, very similar to actual poltergeist. But the thing is, when it is a true poltergeist, if it's an individual, that's the catalyst. If you remove that individual, then usually the activity will stop. Mm-hmm. But if it's a demonic presence, just removing the person from the house will not necessarily cause the demonic activity to stop altogether.
All right, so there's possession, and then there's the demons. So what happens to a person, and how can you tell when they become possessed?
Of course, there are conditions, psychosomatic conditions, manic conditions that may resemble certain, and of course, many, many years ago were taken as signs of possession, such as Tourette's syndrome, where somebody's natural inhibitors are affected, and they just speak out of turn and say things out of turn, and they really have little control over that. But when it is an actual demonic spirit, you will get extraneous phenomena. You will often get extraneous phenomena as well. The person will be affected, but their whole personality will be taken over, and you'll just know it's not that person. And it will not seem human. It will not seem like just another personality. It will not seem like a human personality. And there'll be extraneous phenomena often. Often there will be temperature changes within the room, the surrounding area. Sometimes inanimate objects will be moved. There'll be haunted phenomena going on in the location of the person who is possessed. So it will not be just the person themselves affected. Other people will experience things as well.
Now, when you are called out because there could be a possession or some really bad stuff going on, how can you tell that that person is really possessed or there's some demonic stuff going on?
It is not always easy at first. Sometimes people have extreme personality disorders. Sometimes they're just the need to express themselves that way. However, if it's a true demonic spirit, they will often react to religious provocation, and that can be very subtle. If you can create some kind of provocation without the person even being aware of it, the demonic spirit itself will know, such as if you are a member of the clergy, or if you have a blessed item on your person that isn't necessarily visible. You may be wearing it underneath your shirt or something. Often the possessed will know it's there and will react very negatively. There have been instances where members of the clergy have walked into a room where the possessed has no idea who they are, but they will know that they are clergy because they can just sense it.
So when you come across a case like this, would the next step be an exorcism?
Yes, there could be various points of it. The exorcism would be called for if it's a true possession, but of course there's different things that lead up to that. Of course, now in Catholicism, the church will usually require a complete psychological evaluation, and that doesn't mean that they're saying the person is crazy or unbalanced. That's simply to rule out any other mundane cause, which they usually have to have before an exorcism will be granted.
So how many exorcisms do you think the Catholic, or do other religions do exorcisms as well?
Oh, yes. Okay. Most major religions do have a form of exorcism. And it should be realized that even a baptism is a form of exorcism. And Eastern religions have a form. Buddhism has a form of exorcism. Judaism has a form of exorcism, of course. That predates Christianity. They had exorcists before the time of Christ. But most major religions do have a form of exorcism.
Now, can I ask you a little bit? Are you familiar with the Annalise Michael case?
Yes, I am.
What happened there?
Well, of course, none of us were there, and it's hard to say. We just know that there was this young West German student. She was a very, very lovely girl. Her personality began being taken over by quite a few demonic spirits, and they seemed to be very, very powerful. Now, it was the treatment of it is what became very, very controversial. There's recordings of her speaking while she's possessed and screaming that will obviously make your skin crawl. She was going through torture. She herself was a very religious person, a very holy person, and they seemed to attack her for this reason. So now, what happened is she was becoming increasingly anorexic because of lack of nourishment. She refused to eat, and so she was slowly starving to death. What is miraculous is that she survived as long as she did, with basically no nourishment at all. She was being intravenously fed, but just wasting away, increasingly wasting away. Such a lovely, lovely young woman. And at the end, she was very skeletal, emaciated. Her eyes were blackened. Her teeth were broken. She was very, very self-abusive. And yet she had repeated exorcisms done over her.
So, Keith, why didn't those exorcisms... They had, 60 exorcisms done on her? Why didn't they work?
Actually, they did work.
They did?
The exorcisms did work. Many demons were supposedly cast out of this young girl, Annalise Michael. The fact is that it was not just... See, there's different levels of these spirits, and they are fallen angels, of course. There are the higher ones that very, very rarely, there are higher spirits that very rarely become personally involved in a case of possession. Now, apparently, in her case, there were these higher spirits involved. They refused to leave. They absolutely refused to leave. And some say that it was her choice. She refused to give in to these spirits, and they gave her the choice. Supposedly, the spirits gave her the choice of life and death. She chose to die in Christ, and that's the only way she was freed. The demons were cast out, but these higher spirits, the hierarchy, were not cast out. So eventually she died of malnourishment.
Now, is that the worst case that you've ever heard about? Is this Anna Louise Michael case?
That is that is about the worst case I've heard of, yes. There are many, many other documented cases throughout the centuries, and even in America throughout the 20th century and continuing into the 21st century. Okay. But that, I would say, is one of the worst, if not the worst.
I want to ask you, we did a show about a week ago, and it was on the entity, where this lady was not possessed, but she was being attacked by an entity that was having sex with her. Now, could that have been a demonic activity, or was that a poltergeist in your opinion?
In my opinion, if it was sexually molesting her, it would most likely be a certain type of demonic spirit. It could be as we know, a succubus or an incubus. Mm-hmm. And or the case of sexually molesting a woman, it would be an incubus. Now, of course, these spirits, they assume gender, but they are naturally non-gender. They are neither sex, neither male nor female, so they assume this. So a succubus or an incubus spirit could be interchangeable. They could attack either sex.
Mm-hmm. All right. Is it possible that a poltergeist could do that? Can they have sex with a human?
That would be very, very unlikely and unusual, because a poltergeist does not usually have that amount of intelligence, whereas a demonic spirit will intentionally target somebody. And of course, they are incorporeal spirits. One of the things they love to do is to take over a human body so they can enjoy the pleasures of a physical body, which they, of course, are denied. And yet, like a disease, even though they will thrive in a human body, their ultimate goal is usually to destroy that person.
Now, if somebody has, like in her case, has this going on, could there be some kind of mental illness involved?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There could be mental illness. There could be spirit involvement and mental illness going on at the same time. It's very rarely completely one or completely the other. And even if somebody has been through something, a spiritual crisis like this, obviously I would highly recommend they get some form of counseling, simply because they are gone through a traumatic situation, and that has to disrupt your life, obviously. So somebody should, by all means, seek out therapeutic counseling.
Mm-hmm. Now, Keith, you were going to tell the viewers tonight about this lost episode from Ghost Hunters. Can we talk about that?
Yes, this was when, of course, my brother Carlin and Sandra were all members of the Atlantic Paranormal Society at the time. Now, we had been called in to investigate a possible case of possession involving an older woman in Lewiston, Maine. And we went there and did investigate. The woman, we interviewed her. She was a nice, lovely woman, a very grandmotherly type. And we went there, of course, the first week of January 2004. And Sandra and I were there, along with Brian Hanwa. And Bill and Nancy Warshall, at the time, were involved with Maine Paranormal. They were the founders. They had called us in because of that was our specialty in extreme cases, to see if it was a case of possession, because this woman did seem to be taken over. We met her. We had a long talk with her, very nice, her and her husband and the family, very nice, leisurely chat that evening. She said, I don't think I'm going to go into possession tonight because it hasn't happened for a couple of weeks. But she did ask me to do a blessing of the house. So, assisted by Brian Hanwa and my wife Sandra, we went through the house and began doing a blessing. That seemed to be enough religious provocation when we were saying the Lord Prayer. Even though this woman was devoutly religious, she was devout Catholic, that seemed to be enough to set her off. She began choking. She said she had to go upstairs, and suddenly she was taken over that night. So the blessing I was conducting did seem to provide enough religious provocation for her to be taken over. Now, of course, as time went on, and we did spend quite a long session with her that night, several months later, some members of, this is when, of course, Ghost Hunters was filming for its first season, that we came back and that was filmed. The family was filmed for an episode of the first season of Ghost Hunters. It was going to be shown for Halloween week, and that was going to be the season finale. It was going to end with a real bang, a case of possession. But for one reason or another, it did not wind up getting aired. So it was advertised right up until that very day that it was supposed to be aired right before it was shown, and then they had another episode on. Unfortunately, so many people were disappointed in that and kept asking what really happened. So I did write about that story in my Paranormal Realities series, and Jason Hawes has written about it in one of his books as well.
Right, and you want to tell the viewers, I forgot to mention in the opening about your books that you have written.
Yes, I've written 2 books. I've written 3, actually. Paranormal Realities and Paranormal Realities 2, of course, have both been published, and Paranormal Realities 3 has recently been finished, and it's at the publishers as we speak, so that should be released shortly. That will complete the trilogy.
Now, Keith, you were also wanted to talk about another case by the name of Lucas.
Yes, that occurred quite a few years ago, back in the 1980s, when my brother Carl and I were involved in a group called Monitor East, and that was located in Providence. And my brother and I were friends with this Puerto Rican family of Puerto Rican descent, and their nephew, their 14-year-old nephew, whose name was Lucas, began showing signs of spiritual obsession and oppression, and he began being taken over. They told my brother he was having these episodes. So one night, my brother stayed over at their house in Providence to see what would happen. Then in the middle of the night, all of a sudden they heard him screaming and this bellowing laughter. Now, this was a very, very mild-mannered, lovable young man, 14 years old, a very sweet disposition. But all of a sudden they heard this deep bellowing laughter. And my brother turned on the light to see what was going on. All of a sudden, Lucas came spiraling in. Seems humanly impossible, but he came spiraling in like a top, like a human top, just like a blur. He came in, and the only thing I can describe it is the Tasmanian devil. I guess he was spiraling like that in a circle, and began banging against the walls without injury, and bellowing this laughter and jumping up and down, and then he came out of it with no recollection at all. Was back to his own personality. And this was happening more and more frequently to him. So his family realized that some kind of intervention was required, and an exorcism was arranged. Now, they knew that Carl and I had experience in spiritual matters. They asked if we could be participants in this exorcism. And we were friends with the family. We were friends with Lucas, so we did agree to, yes, we will participate in the exorcism.
So you did the exorcism on this fella?
We did not perform it. We assisted. Carl and I were brought in as assistants, witnesses and assistants in the exorcism. However, the exorcism itself was nothing what I was expected. I was led to believe that it would be a Catholic exorcism, and because they said they were Catholic, and that a priest would be involved and we would be assisting the priest. What it did turn out to be is a Santorian, which of course has Catholic influence, Roman Catholic influence. But it was a Santorian exorcism, Santeria meaning the way of the saints. And Lucas's aunt, who was a Santorian priestess, was conducting the exorcism. So it certainly was nothing what I was expecting when we arrived.
Ah, whatever happened to him?
Well, we were there. She began chanting. We sat around in a semicircle in folded out chairs. He seemed to be pretty normal at the time. He was not taken over at the moment. So he was sitting in the center, and she began praying over him and chanting in Spanish. She began chanting in Spanish. And then we got the warning, what I call the warning, the aura. I refer to it as the aura. It was 3 seconds before he went under possession. Suddenly, you had the, and this can only be described if you've actually experienced it. It's as if the energy is being sucked out of you. The air becomes electrified. The room becomes noticeably cooler. But the main thing is you notice that the energy is being drawn. And this happened 3 seconds before, so I knew something was going to happen. Now, 3 seconds, you feel that energy. Suddenly, there was a rumbling along the floor, almost like an earth tremor. We were wondering if a truck went by or some kind of earth tremor, but you actually felt it under your feet going along the floor. When it reached the chair my brother was sitting in, and my brother was not sitting in a fold-out chair, he was sitting in more of a family chair, which was much heavier. He was sitting in that chair, and it began to move backwards across the floor with him sitting in it. Now, with his combined weight and that chair, that was well over 200 pounds, just sliding across the chair, across the room inside in the chair. And this all happened within seconds, and everybody's glancing around. Suddenly, you could tell Lucas was taken over. His eyes, he bolted upright, his eyes were staring, and he slid out of his chair and began screaming. In the next instant, he was crashing to the ground. It looked like he was literally being picked up and thrown to the ground. And yet he was doing this without injury. He began screaming, and a voice that certainly was not his own began, because he had a very mild-mannered voice, screaming how much I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. Then he began swaying like a cobra. So it was just total pandemonium, and this is certainly not what we were expecting was going to happen. Yet we were called there, and as he began running amok around the room, there was a bowl full of holy water. He tipped that over. He said he hated candles. He began throwing the candles around, and just mayhem. So my brother and I and his uncle finally jumped on him and took all three of us with all our strength to wrestle him to the ground. And it took the combined weight of all three of us sitting on him to keep him pinned down for just a few moments.
Oh my God. So was he cleared?
No, unfortunately. What happened, of course, when we were exhausted by the end of the night. At the end of the night, all fear was gone because we were just so totally exhausted. What happened was he went into a somnambulistic state, like a daze. His eyes suddenly closed over like a film over them, and became very staring and vacant. Suddenly his aunt, who was the exorcist, she bolted upright and fell backwards into what appeared to be a grand mal seizure, right into the altar they had set up. They had a table set up as an altar. She smashed into that and went down, began convulsing, and instead of being injured, all of a sudden she sat up and she's under possession.
Oh my God! No, can a demon transfer from one human to another?
I would say the answer is yes, because I've seen it happen.
Oh my God!
She sat up, and this is how spirits can work. Lucas is just exhausted. He was non-communicative, and she sat up and she was shaking her head back and forth with this grin on her face. Now, one thing I should mention, when somebody is truly under possession, usually they will have a fixed facial expression. Their facial expression will not change. So she had this eerie grin on her face. Her eyes became very serpentine. They looked very snake-like. They blackened out and narrowed. And she asked for a cigar in Spanish, and they gave her a cigar, and she began smoking it with her head waving back and forth, and began saying, come over here. I will tell you your fortune. I am the spirit. I'm the guardian spirit. I will tell you your fortune. Now, obviously, that was a diversion tactic to keep us away from Lucas. We weren't there to have our fortunes told. We were there to perform the exorcism. But of course, people began gathering around her. Oh, tell my fortune, spirit. Tell my fortune. And
God.
I tried, we tried to get everybody back. Let's go back to what we were here for. Now, I had interviewed Lucas extensively, and most of the time people were afraid to be in the room alone with him, but I went in the room alone with him. I had interviewed him. I asked him, how did this happen to you, Lucas? Why does this happen? He told me that when he was 6 years old, he was walking through a cemetery with his family. They were going on a picnic or something. He saw a glove, and being a child, he naturally, out of curiosity, picked it up. A glove lying there, something grabbed onto him. Now, we don't know why that glove was there. Maybe it was used in profane worship, but he was 6 years old. He picked up a glove, something attached itself to him. And that spirit was always with him. In his childhood, he began seeing what looked like a crazy old man coming into his room at night saying, you're mine, you're my property, I own you now. Now, as he grew older, he stopped seeing this crazy-looking spirit man, but it was then when he became, when he was starting to become a young teenager at the age of 14, it started taking over him under possession. So that's how it all happened.
Oh, my God. Okay, speaking of attachments, how does a human being get these attachments? Now, do you think everybody gets attachments, or only those that are delving in the paranormal?
I think we are watched. In one way or another, we are always watched. I do believe that we are watched by spirits, and the way somebody gets an attachment is how sensitive they are. Everybody is more or less sensitive. I mean, people, some people are called sensitive, some people are called psychics. I think everybody has that to a greater or lesser degree. But some people's aura, their protective energy, is weaker than others. Or some people attract these spirits for an unknown reason more than others. If somebody is in a position where they are exposed to this type of contamination, so to speak, spiritual contamination, sometimes a spirit will see an easy target. They will latch onto a person. In this case, it was a defenseless child, and it grabbed onto him and would not let go. So that's how he felt this attachment, which did begin possessing him when he became 14 years of age.
Okay, so an attachment can possess you. Now, in his case, he needed an exorcism. Is that how far an attachment can go?
If unchecked, yes. Attachments can go on for years. But when somebody does have an attachment, what should happen is they should have a deliverance prayer said over them.
But Keith, how do you know how would somebody know when they have an attachment?
They would not know unless the spirit makes its presence known, or unless they come by somebody who happens to have spiritual discernment. They can discern that there's a spirit there.
Now, can an attachment change if someone's personality?
Yes, they can through oppression. That's not exactly the same as possession, but oppression. They can start to radically change that personality. Yes.
So if somebody is really a sweet and nice person, and then all of a sudden they start arguing all the time, they want to fight with you, and they don't smile or laugh anymore, could that be a sign?
That could be a sign. It could also be a sign of depression. It could be a sign of a lot of things. So, just because somebody suddenly has a radical personality change does not necessarily mean they're spiritually oppressed. However, if there is extraneous phenomena going on, if that person becomes suddenly very anti-religious, if there are certain, you feel disturbed when you go into the room with them, if things start materializing and suddenly strangely disappearing in the house, if the person seems to have knowledge that they would not normally have, precognition, Then there is reason for concern if they become extremely violent and anti-religious. It's not necessarily you could jump to that conclusion, but it is something to carefully consider among many other considerations.
So what about all these young kids and starting up? There's so many paranormal groups that are constantly starting up. I don't know what I guess they think it's fun. I have no idea, and I know they have no clue as to the dangers in paranormal.
Right.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
What is a good advice for these young kids or these people that haven't a clue about the paranormal but just think it's fun to go out and start hunting for ghosts?
Well, I'd advise them to be very, very, very careful because yes, it can be fun. It can be very, very interesting. However, there are spiritual realities out there, and that's why my books are titled Paranormal Realities. These are true events. The spirit world is a reality, and there are many, many traps out there, many dangers that they can get themselves into. Sometimes it's not that easy to get themselves out of it. Also, a lot of them, they're dealing with people's lives, private property. Especially if it's family intervention, they should definitely call somebody with more experience. There's no harm in that at all. That's what we did back when we were teenagers. We called in Ed and Lorraine Warren to assist us. I mean, if you know somebody that has years of experience, by all means, have them advise you. Don't go into it blind. And incidentally, speaking of the Lewiston case, I do have a recording of some of that possession, if you'd like to hear it at some point.
Oh yeah, sure. Now tell us about that case.
Okay, this is the one that was the lost episode because it was never aired, and it was known as the possession episode. And of course, I wrote about it, and Jason Hawes wrote about it because people kept asking questions, wanted to know what really happened. And I must warn everybody that this is a little disturbing. It is what we believe to be a case of actual possession. It's and when somebody is undergoing a possession, they can sound like they're very, very it's a very agonizing experience. So I just want to warn everybody. We've prayed beforehand before this, but it is very, very disturbing. Okay, so You let me know when you are ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll play an excerpt of it.
God. Wow. That's really, oh my God. That reminds me of the Anna Louise file.
It is very similar. Now, she sounds as if she's being physically tortured, but I want to make clear there were no restraints on her at all. She was not being held down. She was in no way being physically abused. This was totally because I was speaking in the name of Jesus, and this was a devout Catholic woman. But when she was under possession, it was the name of Jesus would just cause that reaction, and it's extremely distressing, And another thing is when you're dealing with somebody who's under possession, you have to try not to make it a personal battle, because that's what the spirit wants. It doesn't want to fight you. I mean, it doesn't want to fight God. It wants to fight you. It wants it to be personal. It wants no fight with God because these spirits are terrified of God. If they can get a human to try to fight them on their own level, then they feel they have a foothold.
So, Keith, what is the intention of a demon and their possession of a human? What is their intent?
Their intent is to dehumanize that person, to bring that person under control, to try to bring them to a subhuman level, bring them totally under control. And by that way, they are striking back at God. They feel they are hurting God by torturing this individual who is very, very loved by God, who is very precious to God, who is made in God's image. Because we are made in God's image, we have the ability to reason, we have the ability of a free choice, something the demonic totally envies in us, that we have the ability to choose between good and evil. We have a free will. And to dehumanize this is a slam against God. To hurt somebody is hurting God, somebody that God loves very, very much. That is the point of the demonic.
Now, some people, oh gosh, they'll pick up a sensitive or someone on their team, and these people proclaim that they say that a spirit may be stuck, and they want to put them onto the other side by going into the light. Is that the true way to handle that?
I do not believe that is usually the way to handle that. My personal belief. However, when Sandra and I go into a home, we take all aspects into account. We do pray for any lost, wandering spirits. We pray that they be sent to their proper abode. So if it is a lost human spirit, we pray that angels will convey that person to their proper abode, because it's not a natural state for somebody to be wandering about and watching their family die off, watching generations go by in a home that they feel is still their own. That is a very cruel, unnatural state. So we pray that any spirits that would be lost, they be conveyed by angels to their proper abode, and we pray that any demonic spirits be sent to their proper abode. Now, there are some evangelists who like to say demons will be sent back to hell, they'll be sent to torment, be sent to the fires. We don't say that. It's not up to us to judge. We simply ask God's mercy to send angels and it's not under our authority. We ask God to send angels to convey these spirits to where they belong, to send them away from this person. Of course, we cannot destroy, despite what you sometimes see in movies, we cannot destroy demonic spirits. These are spirits that are immortal. They are spirit beings. They cannot be killed. They are not life as we know it. And they can only be sent on. They can be cast out of a person and cast out of a place. Now, when we do that, we do ask for angelic protection. We ask for angels to come in and take the place of that demonic spirit so it cannot re-enter. We do a binding. We also, very importantly, we also pray that no spirits will be allowed to follow us or attach themselves to us. And that's something we always try to do before leaving a location or a situation like that. We specifically word this, that in the name of God, no spirits will be able to follow us or to attach themselves, only that spirits which are holy and of the light.
Mm-hmm. And how can you tell a real, now, are those who can conduct an exorcism, are they also referred to as a demonologist?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. A demonologist's role is to determine, say in the course of a paranormal investigation or paranormal case, a demonologist's role is to go in and make an educated guess whether this is a demonic situation or not, whether demons are involved. However, of course, when a demonologist goes in, they are putting themselves in danger in this situation. So if a demon does start to manifest, or if a demon takes over a person and it's in a threatening manner to that person or to those around, sometimes the demonologist should be able to take control. And As I always say, my very first case, the one in Harrisville, it was by the grace of God that I walked out of there unscathed.
Oh my
So
God.
I was still a teenager, and a demonic spirit began manifesting. I was up in a room alone with the young children. I was the closest, to an adult there. So I prayed for protection. So it's by the grace of God that I walked out of there.
Were you afraid?
I was afraid, but it was more like, when you react to an emergency situation. It's afterwards you feel like you're going to collapse when you get your second wind.
Would you say that was the scariest moment in all the cases that you've handled?
I would say that was, yes.
Oh, interesting, interesting. So, Keith, how would somebody find a legit person who can do an exorcism? Because there are several people, and there are some here in California. I don't know where they got their training from, except that they studied the Bible, that say they can do exorcisms.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find the legit person?
Well, that's I wish I had a very easy answer to that, but I don't. It's sometimes it's unfortunately trial and error. There are people who are experienced exorcisms, who have had years of experience. They are ordained exorcists. There are those who have gone by trial and error, who are capable of casting out spirits. But there are many different levels of spirits. Not all can be cast out very easily. Some spirits, it takes many hours or days of fasting and prayer, and it should be a group effort. And it would be great if all you had to do is go to a church, say you need an exorcism, and a member of the clergy comes out. Mm-hmm. That's very, very, very rarely the case. Clergy are people. They're people like you and I. They're men and women, and everybody has their limitations. Face it, a lot of people just do not want to get involved in something like this. And Sandra and I have had clergy come to us and ask, they've said, we've never learned about this in seminary. Please, can we come on some cases with you? And we have taken clergy on cases with us and helped to train them. Now, I'm not belittling their training. Obviously, they've been through years of seminary. They've done the research, the years of hardship and schooling they put into it, and, God bless them for that. But sometimes seminary doesn't always cover this. So there's a lot of clergy that feel, Christian clergy, that feel totally unprepared for this.
Mm-hmm. Now, Keith, there are, I don't know how, I know there are several, more than several names of demons. I don't know if there's 12, 15, or whatever. Now, when these demons try to take possession of humans, are they all different demons, or is there a certain demon that goes after the human? There are
different ranks of demons, and they have different
Hello?
Yeah, different ranks of demons, and they have different abilities and limitations.
Do you want me to call you on the...
There are some demons, some fallen angels that are in what we call chains of darkness. They cannot come out from where they are. They're in what may be called Tartarus in the Bible, to use the Greek. They're in a dimension that they cannot escape from. They're not allowed to possess or interfere with the living for mysterious reasons because of their great sins. There are spirits that actively roam the earth, that do take place in possessions, do cause the mayhem. There are higher up spirits from them, the fallen angels, that control these spirits and command these spirits. And very rarely do they get involved in actual possession. They're the ones who, if it were the army, they'd be the commanding officers. So there's all different types and different classifications.
Now, isn't Beelzebub the one that's in charge of all those?
Yes, Beelzebub, that means Lord of the Flies. That's Lord of the Flies.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of times when people have a demonic infestation, they will have harbingers in the form of flies. These are harbingers showing that a spirit is there, and it's announcing itself through these multiple flies, even in the dead of winter. And they'll find dozens and dozens of them dead the next day. But the devil and Beelzebub, they are the highest spirits, believed to be the highest spirits. And of course, there are many spirits under them. There are legions and legions of them, thousands. We don't even, of course, they're not numbered. By us, we do not know how many of them. We just know that there probably are millions and millions of them. They will not give you their names, not their proper names. They can be coerced, and they do not like to do this. They have to be forced, usually, to tell you their names. They have, and what their names will be symbolic. They will, like if something is a spirit of lust, it will say its name is lust. If something is a demon of murder, will say my name is murder, and go by that, go by its function rather than its proper name.
Okay, Keith, Tim and I do ITC sessions quite often, and he uses the ghost box. Well, just about every time he does these IT sessions with the ghost box, the name Beelzebub comes up. Why would that happen?
Well, it could be that a spirit is watching and is threatening. So I would do that very, very prayerfully. It could be its way of telling you you're being watched, and this is a warning. It could be a boast. It could be a boast too. Now, just because a spirit claims to be a high lord does not mean it is actually a high lord. A spirit, a demonic spirit, because it is of the kingdom of the devil, can claim it is the devil. It does not mean it is the ultimate devil. It means it's according to the satanic hierarchy. It's a member of the satanic hierarchy, but sometimes they will boast, and that's a terrorist tactic. Just because it says it is Beelzebub does not mean it is the high lord that goes by that name. However, I would be very, very careful with in any situation like this.
Okay, so then, just because we're getting the name Beelzebub on the machine on the ghost box, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's coming from him.
No, it does not necessarily mean it's coming from him directly, because these spirits are very, very powerful, but they have their limitations. Like angels, because that's what they are. They're fallen angels. They cannot be at more than one place at one time. They can extend their influence, but they cannot be at more than one place at one time. But again, they are very, very numerous. Okay. So if something's claiming to be that name, I would not necessarily believe it's that, but I would still be very, very cautious if it's saying something, if it's claiming to be something like that.
Well, Keith, do you also think that it's possibly because that is not a normal name that would come through a radio or a hack shack radio?
Right.
So do you think that that voice is coming through because maybe that person might be in fear of that name?
That's entirely possible. It could be a fear tactic. Exactly. It's a boast, and it's to show its power. Now, this woman that was under possession that I just played the recording, she claimed to be the devil. And you remember in the movie The Exorcist?
Yes.
The demon initially claims to be the devil. It's not the devil, but it claims to be that as a terrorist tactic in order to frighten.
Oh, gotcha. So, okay. Now, Keith, I want to ask you. When I used to investigate with LIVESCIFI, there was a case that we came across in Antioch, California, and when we went up there, we weren't quite sure if maybe Jimmy was mentally unstable or what it was. But when we went up there, he had his cell phone, and he said, I'm attacked all the time. They're attacking my head. There's spears going in my head. And he took pictures with his cell phone, and you could see these like things like flying in the air, and there was like spears, like they were going in his head. And so we decided, well, maybe we should do an investigation up there, because we saw these pictures and we weren't really quite sure if he was all there or not. But then we come to find out he had a brain tumor. He had cancer. His dog also had the beginning stages of cancer in its nose, and the months that we were up there, I guess it was almost a year, the tumor on the dog's nose kept getting bigger and bigger. And we would do an investigation. We went up there quite a bit, doing paranormal investigations, trying to get some answers for Jimmy. And the whole time, every time we would go there, he would show us more and more pictures of these like bolts of lightnings and these things flying around his head. He said, "They're going to kill me. They're going to kill me." And we, so what happened was Jimmy was in contact with somebody from back east, I don't know, Chicago or somewhere, and he said that he could come out and do cleanse his house and do an exorcism. So Jimmy hired this fella to come out. He said this fella said that he was part of the Catholic Church. He was sanctioned to do this. He came out. And Jimmy paid his way. Cost him a lot of money to have this guy come out. And then he left, and Jimmy felt confident that the fella had cleared everything. And when this fella went home, he was attacked. He was severely attacked by unknown entities and ended up in the hospital. And he was in contact with Jimmy, and he said, "I'm done with that. I will never do another cleansing exorcism ever again." And we came back up there, and we continued to do some more investigation and found out that nothing was cleansed. It was still there.
Oh my goodness.
And the dog died, and Jimmy also died. But from Tim said that after the dog died, it seemed to clear up over there. Things seemed to be better.
Mm-hmm.
So was Jimmy? So I really don't know if Jimmy was possessed or what was going on with Jimmy.
I would not say he was possessed. I would say he was a victim. He may have been a soul victim. These spirits attacked, and it's unfortunate that the exorcist wound up being personally attacked himself. And it's like, I'm very, very sorry to hear that. Sometimes spirits will do their dirty work, and sometimes they'll move on. Sometimes they'll remain. It's a mystery. It is the mystery of sin, just like we have the mystery of righteousness. And it's terrible that this happened, and I'm very sorry that happened to Jimmy and that happened to Jimmy's dog. But let me say that they are both where the demonic cannot touch them now.
Yeah.
Because they're beyond the demonic's touch.
Yeah.
The demonic has to answer for this, and that, I would say, is going too far, even on the demonic's part. And the demonic will have to answer for this God's judgment.
Yeah, it was very, very sad. Tim was in contact. Tim also has some gifts, and Tim said that there was, and it was still there, a really ancient demon was there. I don't know how it got attached. I don't know what was going on with that land. All I know, up in Antioch, in the olden days, it was all Indian territory. But Tim said that he knew that there was a very ancient demon that was up in that house for some reason.
It may have been summoned, perhaps when it was Indian territory. Some spirit was, because they have their rituals too, and sometimes rituals go awry. The wrong spirit is summoned, and somebody may have summoned some ancient spirit, some very powerful spirit that was given permission. It was given permission to rule that land. There are spirits known as principalities, and these spirits are, as the name would say, they're princes. They are governors. They are rulers over a certain amount of territory. And apparently a principality was called in over that territory and given permission to be there.
All right, I have one more question to ask you. Now, Tim has done the Sally House many, many times.
Yeah.
And he has, okay, and then not this last time, but the last time before, I think it was last year, he was not feeling, they were doing their paranormal investigation and he stopped. And there was something going on with Tim. He was also scratched. And so the three of them and the other two investigators went with him, and they went out on the porch. And I forget the incident, but they said, "Here, get the holy water, and let's put it on Tim." And so Tim bent over, and they put holy water on the back of his neck, and you could actually see the steam coming from the back of his neck. Now, they tried to debunk that because the other two investigators that were with him also had the holy water put on the back of their neck, and nothing happened. But on Tim, there was actually steam coming from the back of his neck from the holy water. What is that?
Well, that may be a spirit attachment that is actually rebelling against the holy water, against the positive vibrations of the holy water. Then again, it may be putting on a show as a terrorist tactic. But of course, Tim would need much prayer before going back there again, so that he is not further attacked. Because if it's capable of doing that, and obviously it's making very, very close, even if it's just a show, even if it's just a terrorist tactic, it obviously has made that close contact with him where it can actually steam and vaporize the holy water. And that's blessed holy water. It has holy vibrations, so that's a no-no for it to do that. So,
have you ever seen that happen before?
I haven't seen it happen on a person. I've seen it start in a vial. I've seen holy water start to boil and bubble.
Oh my God, you didn't?
Yes, on one occasion, the holy water started to actually bubble in the container, in the glass vial.
Oh my!
Now, I've seen holy water freeze too, but that's because when I was with TAPS years ago, Brian Hanwar and Fran and Renee, other TAPS members, we were going through this house. This was in Sabattis, Maine, and it was literally 40 degrees below zero. We were doing a house blessing in an unheated house that had open windows, a barn. It was an old barn farmhouse, and it was literally 40 degrees below zero. So the holy water obviously froze.
Oh my God.
And our lips froze too. We were actually going to hypothermia.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, Keith, it was such a pleasure to have you on the show. Oh my God. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure with you, Noreen. I'm glad we got this through, and I'm glad the show went well, and and God bless my team members. We were with them earlier this evening doing research. Our team members, Dan and Janine and Nathan and Dave, we were all out there. That's just part of our team. We're out there doing research. And we have, Dan and Janine and Dave are out there right now they're on an investigation right now as we speak.
Wow.
They're trying to find out what's causing certain unexplained rumblings that seem to happen on a weekly basis in this area.
Oh my God.
So they're recording them and doing research on that, and they're outside right now doing that as we speak.
Keith, do you want to, I have a picture of you and your wife, your lovely wife, Sandra, and would you give them your website if anybody has any questions or may want to contact you?
Certainly. Our website is nearparanormal.com. That's www.nearparanormal.com. And you can also see episodes of we put them on our site as well, and on youtube.com, of our TV talk show Ghosts Are Near, where we show investigations and discuss paranormal activity as well.
Oh my God, that's wonderful. Keith,
please visit our website and meet our team members as well.
Keith, I sure hope you'll come back on the show again.
I certainly will,
I'd,
Noreen. It's been a pleasure.
oh,
I'm glad to get this information out.
Oh, I'd love to have you back on. And thank you so much. And you have a wonderful evening and a wonderful weekend. I really appreciate you being on the show.
You too. God bless you, Noreen.
Thank you, honey. You too. Thank you.
And Tim also. God bless him too.
Thank you so much. Good night, Keith.
Bye-bye.
Oh my God, he's just the sweetest man. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed our show tonight. Do You Believe on LiveSciFi.tv. And thank you so much for joining us. It was just a pleasure to have Keith on the show. Very spiritual and loving man. And Keith, again, thank you so much. And please subscribe and give us a like on the show. We'd really appreciate it. And please stay in contact with Live Sci-Fi on the YouTube channel. We'll post our next show over there. Hopefully Tim will be with me on the next show. And everybody, thank you so much. And I want to wish you all a good night and have a wonderful weekend. And thank you again for joining the show. Thanks, everybody. Good night. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks. Good night.